Free gunning. It's hard work, but it's our work, and we don't take it for granted. Being a free gunner means, well, you're free.
On August 23rd, after 8 years in development, Sony, along with Firewalk Studios, finally released a game that everyone had been asking for. It was met with critical acclaim. Just kidding. Less than 2 weeks later, a game that cost around $200 million to develop was shut down. Permanently. So what exactly happened? And why was it so poorly received? We'll take a look into that, and I'll give you my unique perspective on what I think initially happened. But first, let's take a look back and see what led us up to these events. It's September of 1995, and after a year of success in Japan, Sony had finally released the PlayStation in America. With an estimated 102 million units sold, it was safe to say that life was pretty good. This trend continued throughout the PlayStation 2's release in 2000, with another 155 million units. And even the PlayStation 3, released in 2006, with a respectable 88 million units sold. But by 2009, something had started to go very wrong. Sony's revenue had started to dip pretty hard. Now, there were some pretty obvious factors. America was still digging its way out of the Great Recession, and the fact that the launch titles for the PlayStation 3 were a little lackluster. Add in the fact that the PlayStation 3 had started to show its age a little bit, and people were already awaiting the next console. That was a move Sony decided not to make until November of 2013. And that's when something interesting happened. Despite selling 117 million PlayStation 4s, Sony's revenue continued to dip, with 2014 being its worst year in a decade. 2015 wasn't much better, and it became pretty obvious that some changes needed to happen, and the pivot to live service games was set. Enter Firewalk Studios. In 2018, Firewalk Studios was founded by Harold Ryan, former CEO of Probably Monsters, Tony Hsu, previous GM and Senior Vice President of Destiny at Activision, and Ryan Ellis, former game director at Bungie. And in their own words, our mission is to craft incredible multiplayer experiences that bring people together and inspire unforgettable and unexpected shared moments. Well, you somewhat succeeded in that, didn't you? Because your game was definitely unforgettable. Just probably not in the way that you thought. So what went wrong? What caused this game studio to create this pile of hot, woke garbage is anyone's guess. But as someone who's worked in a management role at a large corporation before, I think I can offer some insight. Often what happens is you have a group that gets into power. These people hire almost exclusively like-minded people. And before anybody realizes it, these people end up taking control. They create their own echo chamber, and anyone who offers a dissenting opinion is usually, at best, ostracized, and at worst, let go. Before too long, there's no one left to tell them, this really is not a good idea. It's also pretty obvious that with Hsu coming in from Activision, there was a moment where either he himself or somebody that he hired pitched the idea of, hey, you know what we should do? Diverse Overwatch. The problem is, in the words of Dr. Ian Malcolm,
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
the game was boring, repetitive, and at best uninspired. Being in an 8-year development cycle, it felt like it was still out of date. How many people bought this game? 1 million? 5 million? 10 million? 25,000. Compare that to E.T., which is widely considered the worst game ever created. It sold 1 million copies. Superman 64, which was also a terrible game, sold 500,000. In fact, one of the only games that I could find that sold worse than this was Big Rig's Over the Road Racing, a game that wasn't even finished when it was released, was developed by 2 people, is universally reviled, and still managed to sell almost 20,000 copies. 5,000 less than this game. Now look, I can forgive the game for being bad. I can forgive it for being boring. Hell, I can even forgive it for being woke if the characters weren't obvious, blatant ripoffs of other video game characters and pop culture references. Take one off. A futuristic yellow robot that looks like a round trash can wielding a large cannon. Oh, you mean like Robo from Chrono Trigger? Lennox, a yellow alien with a mohawk, spiky goatee that throws supercharged projectile weapons and wears a vest. Kinda like Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy? Roka, a green helmet-wearing, heavy-hitting... Well, there's no other way to really to describe her other than a space marine. Space marine, where have I seen that before? Oh, just like the Doom guy. Teo, a futuristic super soldier with a machine gun and a cybernetic eye. Oh, just like Cable. Well, at least they got his hair right. Jabali, a man with a comically oversized hat. Oh, just like McCree. Kips, a tall, purple, slender, whatever the heck he is, with green glowing eyes that looks suspiciously just like the Iron Giant. Hamar, an Asian woman that wields a pistol with a stock. Now I know I have seen that somewhere before. Oh, right. Kind of like Ada Wong. Somebody seriously tell me that is not heavily inspired by the Matilda. Lark. I can't put my finger on it for the life of me, but I know I've seen him somewhere. Starchild. Come on, tell me that's not Thanos. Colored hair, green skin. Clearly Gamora. Amari looks suspiciously like a Brotherhood of Steel paladin. Daw, Amy Schumer. I could keep going, but I think at this point, you guys get what I'm getting at.
Nothing moves the blob!
Look, there are many reasons that this game failed, but I feel like there were so many opportunities for someone to step up and say, you know, maybe this isn't such a good idea. This is what happens when you let activists take over entertainment. It's not just video games, but movies too. I get it. You don't want to deal with the negative publicity from certain groups, but it does make me question just how long these companies can keep losing millions and millions of dollars, with companies like Disney estimated to have lost $1 billion in the last 4 years alone. My fear is that it will lead to less risk-taking and companies trying to take the more safe route, and trust me, safe is boring. We want these companies taking risks and trying new things. Otherwise, we start getting games like Madden or Assassin's Creed, where they essentially release the same thing over and over and over and go with the status quo. Or they go out of business. What do you guys think about it? Was this the worst game ever made? Was it something you actually enjoyed, or was it somewhere in between? Are you relishing in the fact that this crashed and burned, or are you kind of indifferent? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Good night.